this is a prop because it feels weird to be talking with just my hands. Anyway. Hi guys! Welcome back, or welcome to the channel. If you know me or if you've met me, you've probably heard me mention that I grew up in a city called Shanghai. My parents aren't from Shanghai, like we aren't Shanghainese by blood, but my parents had moved there when I was only a few months old, and I basically grew up there my entire life, all 19 years until I went off for uni. In case I don't mention it like 10,000 times in this video, I really love Shanghai. Actually my favorite city in the entire world. I rep Shanghai really hard. I think the food scene there is great, the architecture is great, deep history, there's so much to do in that city. It's relatively cheap compared to other world cities like Hong Kong. I think it's the perfect blend of all things good about China mixed with like all the things that I like about an international city like London or New York. Unfortunately, my parents have recently moved away from Shanghai, which basically meant that my entire like concept of a home base was uprooted this summer. So I've kind of been mourning the loss of no longer being able to go back to Shanghai as regularly, and I can no longer call Shanghai like home. But regardless, I think Shanghai is still a very integral part of my identity, and I feel like a lot of my friends in uni haven't been to Shanghai. They've never been to China, they've never been to Asia. So I just wanted to make something to, you know, introduce you guys to Shanghai. So when I went back to Shanghai over the summer, I decided to document some of my favorite things. So a couple disclaimers before we start. First is that this is not a complete guide. This is like the tip of the iceberg of what Shanghai can offer you. I was only there for a week. It was like 42 degrees Celsius outside over the summer. So I couldn't go to all my favorite places that I wanted to show you. I just kind of filmed what was convenient for me. The second disclaimer is that there is a palpable lack of Chinese food in this video. That's because I am whitewashed. Okay, to be fair, a lot of the Chinese restaurants that me and my family go to are more communal, right? You order 5 or 6 dishes for the table. Obviously, I was mostly going solo this trip, so I couldn't really visit all the restaurants that me and my parents go to. I'll write a couple Chinese restaurants in the description because I think it's a bit abhorrent that I show you a video about China and not show you any Chinese food. So without further ado, let me show you around Shanghai. So my top recommendation for Shanghai is this restaurant called Mercato by Jean-Georges. And I know every person from high school is gonna roll their eyes at this recommendation because it's the most basic thing I can offer, but I maintain that this is a classic for a reason. I mainly go to Mercato for their pizza. They use this charcoal wood grill, which gives this really unique charred flavor to their pizza, and their dough is buttery soft. Like, you cannot find this sort of dough anywhere else in Shanghai, okay? The pasta is also handmade in-house. I don't rate their tiramisu, but it's like decent. I think what is really special about Mercato is that it's in this gorgeous space with this great view overlooking the Bund. The ambience is something that I would deem this restaurant to be my ideal like date spot. It's the perfect amount of like intimate vibes plus casual. The location is great, the price is reasonable. Not to mention that after dinner, you can take your date on a stroll around the Bund. So this is the Bund. This is Waitan, which is also the Shanghai landmark. You do not go to Shanghai without going to the Bund. So back when Shanghai was colonized by the British, the French, the Americans, etc., the Bund was basically where all these foreign powers had their banks and their merchant like houses right in front of the trading docks along the river. So that explains why there's all these like gorgeous European style architectures along the riverside. And also you get this really gorgeous view of the Shanghai Pudong skyline. I personally would not recommend going to the Bund on a weekend or any Chinese public national holiday, but I think the waterfront is a great spot to stroll and soak in the history. Random story time. The Bund is where I held a boy's hand for the first time in my life. I completely forgot this happened until I was filming this segment. I was immediately catapulted back to a time 2 years ago where I was a simp with zero self-respect. I am no longer the person I was 2 years ago. It was just amusing to recall that memory, basically. So the next area I want to introduce you to is this area called Xintiandi. This is the area that I spent a majority of my life in. I spent around like 10 years living here, so I kind of have a soft spot for it. When my family had just moved there in like 2012, Xintiandi was the up-and-coming area of downtown Shanghai. Every new restaurant opening was there, every trendy new place was opening there. That probably explains why there are like over 5 malls in a 10-minute walking radius. The premise for Xintiandi is interesting. They basically refurbished a lot of old stone houses houses to become this giant shopping complex. So back in the day, Xintiandi was brimming with life. It was a good shopping area. The food scene was honestly the best it could be in Shanghai. But over the recent years, kind of lost its charm because a lot of the malls and the brands became really homogenous. All of the restaurants came and went within every few months. They kind of now only carry independent young Chinese fashion designers, which is kind of out of my tax bracket and not really my scene. But if you're interested in fashion, I think it's worth taking a look at. It's more interesting to walk around now than it was a couple years ago. So one subway stop from Xintiandi is this little place called Al's Diner, which is a restaurant run by a husband and wife duo. Al's Diner is your typical like diner, hungover food, greasy burgers, pancakes, the likes. But what I really go there for is Gracie's ice cream. Gracie is the wife, Al's the husband, which I think is adorable. I know there are a lot of new ice cream spots around Shanghai now, but I credit Gracie's ice cream for being the first to sort of have really unique flavors. I really love their sesame ice cream. I love their mint chocolate ice cream. I've had their honeycomb ice cream. I like their malt ice cream. I think it's just a place where you know that you will find these flavors whenever you have a craving for them. It's not the best ice cream in the city, but I think it's one where you really credit the classics and you give credit where credit is due. The next area is Jing'an. So Jing'an is basically one of the two CBDs in Shanghai. So in this area, you will basically find office buildings attached to really luxurious malls that are only good for AC in the summer. Obviously, there's more to do the further away you go from the office buildings. Jing'an has a lot of foot traffic, so I think the quality of food wherever you go in Jing'an is going to be quite high quality. Mostly, I want to highlight this mall called Real or Real. Best thing about Real is their food court in the basement, which has everything that you could ever want. Also, if you're in Jing'an, I think you should pay a visit to Jing'an Temple, which is where the name came from. Wherever you are in Shanghai, whichever mall you are in, I promise you, I guarantee you, there is going to be a baker and spice, a wagas, or a funk and kale. These are all the same restaurants, just under a different name. Basically, baker is a bakery slash restaurant slash cafe concept. It honestly has pretty solid food. It's not the most life-changingly good food. It's like food that you can depend on to taste the same wherever you are. It's like a Starbucks or a Pret, basically. It's just like a good lunch option, I think. Any of the baker locations are also good study spots because there's Wi-Fi, the coffee is pretty good, and this blueberry yogurt cake that I had was delectable. Shanghai has no shortage of coffee shops. In fact, Shanghai has the densest population of cafes in the entire world, beating Tokyo and London. There are a lot of really good independent coffee shops in Shanghai that I love, but independent coffee shops can be expensive, so I really highly recommend this chain called Manor Coffee. Manor Coffee is a homegrown Shanghai coffee brand that's expanded its way across China in a really short amount of time. It's honestly really good coffee. For a latte, it's only like 20 to 25 RMB or like £2. You're not gonna get that price anywhere else in Shanghai. But they have like seasonal drinks as well, so like 桂花拿铁. Like, it's just good coffee. Saving the best for last, on the intersection of Huashanlu and Fuxinglu is this restaurant called Chartres, or Xiaduo, which I think is the most underrated Western restaurant in Shanghai. Because Shanghai is a city that really demands everything to be new, to be shiny, to be trendy, and this restaurant has stood the test of time. It's been there for over 20 years. I've been eating there since I was a little kid, and I still eat there. Like, the quality has not dropped in all of 20 years. Right next to them is their sister restaurant called Xiaduo Huayuan, or Chartres Garden. Their alfresco dining is very Parisian flair. It's like a bit fancier. I think if you want a more cozier, family style, intimate vibes, go to Chartres. Their cake sells out every night. I'm actually really passionate about this. So when you go there for dinner, go in, sit down, go look at the cake selection, and reserve a slice of cake that you want. I love their Earl Grey chiffon cake. They have a taro cake that I really like. So say you finish a meal at Xiaduo. You walk down Fuxinglu, and then you come all the way to the street called Wukang. So Wukang is located in the former French concession, which is a term that is very politically incorrect right now. But I think it's a good indicator of the history of the street and why it's so charming, basically. So wutong trees are lined up all along Wukang, and there is like laoyang fangs on either side, which literally translate to old Western houses. I think the entire Wukang and its surrounding streets are so quintessentially Shanghai. Like, that's the Shanghai charm that I love. There are a lot of cute cafes on Wukang, lots of restaurants that are the perfect date spot, lots of wine bars, ice cream shops, you name it. Wukang and its surrounding streets have recently become like the trendy Instagram hotspot in Shanghai. So it's basically every Chinese influencer's bread and butter. But I still think it's worth a visit. to like really experience the Shanghai charm. So like I said, this is a very incomplete guide to Shanghai. I'd be happy to recommend you more places. If you drop a comment, you ask like what cuisine you want, I'm happy to give you more recommendations. I highly encourage you to visit Shanghai because I think it's a really lovely city, okay? I love Shanghai. Personally, it's the best city in the world. I promise you're gonna have such an amazing time there. Next time when I go back and I film, the recommendations will be a lot better and a lot less basic than this. Until then, this will have to do. Thank you so much for watching. So in my very limited Shanghainese, 再见喽，再会。Also, these jokes write themselves. No, this is not for social credit.